So what generally, stops people getting into this? I mean, you'd think it'd be something that would almost be going right through your career, thinking, well, who's coming next? What's going to happen next?
Not knowing where to start. Yes, what succession planning is, why it's important, but how do I start? There's plenty of seminars out there dealing with the first two. And then at the end of the seminar, I've been to them, the clients say, well, how do I start? And everyone sort of looks over their shoulder and looks around. So it's, how do you start having this conversation about emotive things and relationships?
And how do you? What's the best way?
Well, what we found works is spending some preparation questions, 2 pages of questions go out. Farmers get this thing go, their thought processes going as to what's important to themselves and also what their thoughts are about the business. Plus also we look at the values of the mum and dad, do some work on that because that's the core of it. And so spend a good half day with them and then work the same thing with the children and their partners. So you get all that stuff out on the table, share it round and then bring them together.
So initially you would start with the couple, the patriarch and matriarch, and then see what they wanted to do, and then you bring in the other family members.
Yeah, and then work with the other family members individually with their partners.
Does it work? I mean, can the patriarch, as in the old days, just say, well, this is the way I want it, and I'll...
Yeah, and there's a place for that too, because mum and dad, what we're dealing with is their life's work.
Yes.
Yeah, they've spent 40, 50 years probably starting with nothing, working through some incredibly tough, difficult times, probably at some stage in their life lost everything and recovered again. So they've built this up, so they've got every right to say, this is what I want to have, this is what I want to be doing.
So then it's a question of bringing all the other family members into the party and then trying to make it happen.
Yeah, and the beauty of that is, I'm no longer surprised what the children bring to the table, because they're very globally aware, very well connected, very educated, experienced a lot of things, and so they have a lot to offer. If mum and dad open the door up and let them contribute.
And of course, different strokes for different folks. We're all different, so some do and some don't, I guess.
And what mum and dad contribute, or what the children can contribute, can produce something so much better than even mum and dad envisaged.
So what can you do for that scenario we mentioned before, where dad's well into his 60s and mum, and the kids are into their 40s or 50s. As you say, they've established their own lives. What is this? Is the only thing you can do sell the farm?
No, not necessarily. Because succession, there's 2 components to it, or there's 2 ways of looking at it. And I asked mum and dad, what's your time frame for succession? Is it to the next generation, or is it for future generations? And that little S on the end of generation takes them down a different pathway.
Yeah. So some of these farms obviously have been intergenerational, haven't they? Been around for 2 or 3 or 4, possibly.
One yesterday.
So the thought of giving it up and losing the whole thing is awful, isn't it?
Yeah, one I was with yesterday, it started in 1927 with their grandparents. And their view is future generations. 5 daughters, what do we do?
And of course, you mentioned globally before, a lot of people are living overseas or whatever. So how do you bring them in on the discussion?
Well, running the family business, and these have grown. They could be 10, 20, 30, $50 million businesses now.
2 or 3 farms.
Yeah, exactly. So mum and dad have created that and they've learnt along the way. So you look at the different parts of it, there's the shareholding aspects, there's the governance, the direction side, there's the management, and then there's a labour doing the work. So what skills do family members have and what part would they like to play in this business? Because it's not just going out, getting the cows in or mustering the sheep.
And as you say, these businesses, they're worth a hell of a lot of money, as opposed to 40 years ago where they're worth thousands or hundreds of thousands. Now it's millions, isn't it?
So having this conversation is very warranted.
Yeah, absolutely.